The bill you've co-sponsored that addresses early learning and subsidized childcare passed the House last week. What changes were made before that was passed?
Well, actually, there were some significant changes made based on what the advocates and the folks that work in the arena of early childhood education and care voiced their concerns about. But basically, I think it all boils down to the fact that if we're going to subsidize childcare and early education in this state, that we want to be able to get the best bang for our buck. We want a quality child care venue for all kids. And again, these are subsidized kids using taxpayers' money, and the reality is we want to get some great benefit from that. And frankly, just subsidizing childcare and having a kid sit in front of the television for several hours out of the day absolutely achieves nothing. So what we're saying is if we're going to pay that money and help you get your child into a quality childcare venue, we expect quality as the result of that.
What's the status on the proposal to increase the minimum wage?
I think it's dead. Of course, it could potentially be resurrected because it would be necessary to implement the budget, so it's called an NTIB bill. But I don't think there's a great appetite for that right now. I know there are some folks that are pushing that because their districts kind of call out for it. I can tell you my district is not clamoring to have an increase in the minimum wage. My district is saying that we live on a border community, and frankly, we will drive jobs out of our community over the border because they'll be able to hire a labor force for so much less.
The revenue forecast was released last week. What did that show, and what does it mean for the budgeting process?
Well, I don't know that it really means a lot. I guess the positive part is it didn't decrease. There was about a $30 million increase in this revenue forecast for this biennium, and then approximately another $80 million, I believe, for the 2015 and the 2017 biennium. It's not a significant change. It's not going to make or break the budget. I suspect we will be able to put that in our rainy day fund and try to be a little more prepared for any potential downfall in the future, which we're all hopeful that will not happen. I'm Representative Maureen Walsh, and I always appreciate hearing from you and welcome your ideas, comments, and feedback. If I can ever be of assistance to you in any way, please let me know by calling, writing, or sending me an email. I also encourage you to sign up for my email updates from my website, which is on your screen. Thanks for taking the time to listen today. It is an honor to be your state representative.
The Senate just proposed its supplemental budget this year. Can you tell folks a little bit about that?
For one thing, it spends within our means, and I think that's a good thing for all of us in Washington, like our folks at home that sit around their kitchen tables working through their budget, living within their means. They're setting an example, and we need to follow that example. I'm excited that we're not talking about general tax increases, yet because of some caseload adjustments, we're going to have fewer people on TANF, that's temporary assistance for needy families, fewer people on TANF, fewer people in long-term care. So that's going to allow us to adjust the budget and provide $25 million more in higher ed. We're going to have $5 million more in that for Opportunity Grant. And Eastern Washington's going to get $1 million to add to their engineering program slots, and Central will get a like amount regarding engineering and computer science slots. So those high demand fields where we need more people and we need more graduates, we're going to be able to offer additional seats to set in those classrooms and get more people out to the private sector, working where the demand is high and people will be paying taxes and working and have great opportunities.
There may be a supplemental transportation budget passed this week. Do you foresee a transportation tax package going along with that?
I can't really see any way that we're ready yet to pass a big transportation package. That's too much of a heavy lift. We'll get a transportation budget because we have to do that. But regarding the big mega projects where a tax increase, like a gas tax increase, may be necessary, you know, the public, taxpayers, our citizens, are asking us, what are you currently doing with the taxes you're collecting? Because you've got some big problems out there. So we need to get those fixed, and we need to build confidence among our citizens before anybody goes out and asks for any big package.
The legislature is scheduled to adjourn on March 13th. Do you foresee us getting out on time or staying a little bit extra?
I'm perfectly happy to not only leave on time, but maybe get out of here a few days early. 60 days was all that's needed in a short session. We can use 60 days. We don't have to. We have some supplemental budget fixes that we have to make, like we talked about. But you know, the rest of the bills that are out there, if they don't pass, maybe a few will yet pass, we'll get that work done. And I have heard a rumor, and this kind of rumor I like, is that we could possibly get out of here short of 60 days. And so if that's the case, I think it'll make taxpayers happy. I know it'll make my family happy, and I'm just as happy to go home early so we can get back to district and get back to work.
The House recently passed House Bill 2451, which would restrict the practice of sexual orientation change efforts. What are your concerns with this legislation?
Well, the bill said that a licensed therapist will now no longer be able to speak to a client on certain subjects, which is totally, completely unacceptable. I just want to read to you what the Washington State Constitution and the U.S. Constitution say about this. So Washington State Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, freedom of speech. Every person may freely speak. U.S. Constitution. First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. So to me, that was just totally and completely unacceptable that the legislature would tell a licensed therapist that they cannot speak to a client who has come to them on certain subjects. It's just not our job, not our business to get between the therapist and the client who's come to them asking for help.
You opposed House Bill 2789, also referred to as the drone bill. What concerned you about the bill?
Well, what concerned me about the bill is there is too much concern about we're going to make the object illegal. And to me, it's not the object that should be made illegal, it's the action. What they were concerned about is our Fourth Amendment right to protection against invasion on our privacy. So what does it matter if I'm in a manned aerial vehicle or I'm in an unmanned aerial vehicle? If I violate someone's rights, I'm violating their rights. So it doesn't matter the vehicle. It doesn't matter if I'm on top of a building with a pair of binoculars and violating someone's rights. So my intention was, with speaking against that bill, is those could be useful tools for us to stop crime, to save lives. And so it's not the tool that should be made illegal, it's the action. And it doesn't matter what vehicle you use. So concentrate on the action, not on the tool, and allow that tool to be used for law enforcement, making sure that we don't violate people's constitutional rights.
The Tri-Cities Legislative Council made a presentation before the House Transportation Committee. Describe their presentation and why is their work so important to the 8th Legislative District?
Well, obviously, being from the 8th Legislative District with Richland, Kennewick, and West Richland in my district, I'm super excited about the Tri-Cities. And when we had Tri-Cities Days in the Transportation Committee, it was truly an exciting day. They came over and they shared with the Transportation Committee what a great place the Tri-Cities is, all the commodities we have that are grown and made there that are shipped around the world. And we showed why it would be very, very important for Washington State to invest in the infrastructure there so that we can continue to get our products to market and get them to the ports around the world, because what's good for the 8th Legislative District is good for Washington State because of the tremendous amount of revenue that's produced there.
This week was Budget Week in Olympia, where we got our first look at the House and Senate proposed supplemental budgets. What are your first initial thoughts?
My first initial thoughts are the Senate budget was great. It was on a bipartisan basis. There were no new taxes. We were not doing any deficit spending, again, for a second year in a row. And they're looking out for education, where our emphasis should be. And they put money into K through 12, and they put money into higher education. And they're also looking at the long-term effects of having a very solid budget that doesn't ask for new taxes, doesn't draw on spending that we don't have, no spending, no creating of new deficits. And it's a great budget, and it was done, again, on a bipartisan basis. When the Senate came out and gave it, it was 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats standing up there saying, this is our budget. And that is just a first in Olympia.
The State Economic and Revenue Forecast Council recently released their updated revenue forecast. What did it say?
Basically, it said that this biennium we've actually are doing quite well. We've got $31 million that we haven't spent yet, and it's growing. But it's growing at such an anemic pace that the economy is not going down. That's the good news. But the economy is going up just a little bit. But the forecast said we will not get back to our pre-Great Recession levels until about the middle of the next decade, around 2025, 2027. So what we're actually looking at is a very slow growth. But the other good thing about that is that our economy in this state is doing better than the other states in the United States. So I think that's part of the great news.
So now that the budgets have been released, what do you expect will happen? What's the process, and can the legislature adjourn on time?
Well, you know, the rumor around here is that we're going to get out 2 days, maybe 3 days early. And I think that's a little over-optimistic, but at least at this point, we're not talking about a special session. We were talking about a special session at this point in the last session, and we ended up with 2 of them. So what I'm hearing is that, yes, we'll probably get out on time. And what is going to happen now is the Senate's given their proposal for a budget. They're going to pass it out from the Senate, send it over here. The House Democrats, who will be putting together a budget, give it to us sometime later this week, and then pass it out, and then we'll start having negotiations on that budget. But again, I firmly believe that the Senate Majority Caucus, along with the 3 Democrats that were representing the Democratic caucus over in the Senate, we're going to end up with their budget. No new taxes, no deficit spending, a little bit of spending, more spending in K through 12 and higher education, and hopefully there'll be some spending that will help us get our residency program in the Tri-Cities.